Hello, everyone, and welcome back to True Words Aren't Beautiful after a long absence. Anyway, well, the update is I have finished my pilgrimage, and it's actually not over in terms of where I'm going internally. It's just continuing and changing the landscape from the landscape in nature, mountains and rivers, to the inner landscape and the journey into society, or rather, the illusion. So, to let everyone know what happened since I left for Mount Gitting in May, well, that had to be the hardest challenge I faced because we got hit with a Signal 1 out of 5 different categories of typhoons when we were climbing one of the most technical climbs in the country. Along the way, I unfortunately lost my phone due to water damage. When you have a typhoon and you don't have plastic bags, well, you are probably in not the best position to be. Could this have been prevented? Absolutely. I unfortunately followed the weather report, which said it may or may not rain. And my host said it should be fine. Every time we've had those weather reports, it ends up being just fine. But this time, it was a typhoon. So the way I prepared was for dry and sunny weather, as opposed to rain. Instead of a tent, I brought my hammock. He also said that he would bring a tarp, but unfortunately, he forgot it at base camp. Or rather, before the jump-off point. So, I was sharing a tent with the first person who offered me a space, but that person did not bring a ground sheet, and during the storm, his tent became an indoor swimming pool, which soaked my sleeping bag and my hammock, which I had used as a pillow. So, I also foolishly only brought 2 pairs of pants, which meant I had nothing to change into to sleep. So I was sleeping in wet pants, wet socks, and wet underwear. Not that it mattered, because during the assault day, it was a non-stop downpour. If you look up videos of Gitting, you'll see a lot of jagged, sharp rocks, as this is one of the most brutal climbs of what they call the Knife's Edge trilogy in the Philippines. Some people even thought I wouldn't make it because they had a very bad impression of me due to my sense of humor. Not that it matters. I mean, some people love Woody Allen, some people just don't think he's funny. So, I made it to the top and back. Even if I didn't have optimal preparation, I did it. We broke records and we went through more obstacles than most people would on a sunny day, where the biggest problem might be the breeze, but most commonly it's the extreme heat from being in an open space with no cover under the sun. But I definitely validated everything I learned along the way, as well as my years of martial yoga, where my stamina, my strength, and my skill, as well as my ability to solve each puzzle along the way of where to move and how to adapt, especially when you have the wind and slippery, wet rocks. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I still consider myself a beginner, or rather, a beginner who has stamina and strength. Because part of mountaineering isn't just your stamina and your strength, but it's your preparation and your equipment. My equipment was not the best because I bought what was available instead of waiting around or looking around back in December. On top of that, I also did not have the best preparation because, as I said, I was expecting sunny weather instead of a typhoon. Still, along the way, my sense of humor, my zen, it attracted attention. Some people had an issue with my sense of humor, such as the people I climbed with, or even the admin of the park, because when I wrote in the contact information form, when they said sex, male or female, I wrote yes please, which annoyed them. Anyway, that's unimportant. What matters is I left a legacy there, and I will be remembered for being a guy who wrote yes please instead of male or female. They also remember me as the guy who would rather meditate than enjoy some drinks. They also know me as the guy who will have one drink minimum, 2 drinks maximum, living in moderation, leaving no trace, picking up garbage, and teaching some people who might have some mental handicaps, teaching them the Nenbutsu, or how to chant Amitabha Buddha's name, whether it's in Japanese, Namo Amida Butsu, or Chinese, Namo Amitofo, or Tibetan, Om Ami Dewa Hri, or Sanskrit, Om Amitabha Hri. Whatever it is, you're invoking Amitabha Buddha, one of the most well-known Pure Land Buddhas and his many sects around the world. We'll get to the point about Buddhism later on, but whether it's seeing spirits in the mountains or the rivers, and just feeling the entire shift, finishing my journey, I came back after the biggest challenge in my life, fulfilled. I've completed everything, even if my goal or what I sought to achieve didn't necessarily manifest at the time, and we don't know if it will manifest or not. All I know is I did my part, and moving forward, I'm going to keep climbing, whether it's literal mountains or metaphorical mountains, like right now, climbing through the mountains of credit card bills, or the mountain of emotions and the social climbing that people do, navigating through that in order to find my place, which I have, and be at peace with my place. No need to compete, no need to stand out. Just do what I do, and everything will fall into place. That's another way of saying find your Zen, or know your Dharma, know your calling. So, going through my notes here, I came back with insights in the modern world. I know what my value is, and I've evolved and improved my perception, because when I started this journey, I was full of fear and self-loathing, and a lot of guilt, a lot of regret. And I recognize, like anyone else, we deserve what we ask for. And I had no idea that through my insecurities, I was asking for all the problems in my life, whether it's clients and students who don't respect me and devalue me, or bad relationships, bad friends. The universe responds to your thoughts and emotions, and I'm not talking about the law of attraction. What I'm talking about includes the law of attraction, but to a higher level, which is whatever is inside you, the universe just mirrors. Sure, you might hear that in New Age mumbo-jumbo, but I found this to be true time and again. If you look at, for example, what I was instructed to offer, which is $1,000 a month, and that's still half of what my teacher used to charge in 1986, or rather, our Grand Master. I always felt, oh man, this is too much. People won't like that. Until I realized, no. If they're not willing to recognize the value of what you're offering, these people are not going to respect the teachings. And time and again, I found that they don't want to develop their minds because they're so self-certain of themselves and their identities. And having mind work is very important in order to develop the creative mind and the martial yogin's mind. If you practice only technique, it's the same thing as just doing something robotic. Buddha did not chase students. Buddha did not adjust his teachings for students. He offered 3 vehicles to liberation. You follow them exactly as taught, or if it's not your thing, he doesn't care. If you're meant to follow them, you are. If not, he doesn't force you to take them. And for me, I was desperate for cash. I was desperate for validation. But I am not going to get validation from being desperate. I'm going to get validation from sticking to my guns and accepting that the value of the teachings and my own value are worth it. So, what they're paying for is not just the teachings, but my time. Time in the sense that I spend over a decade learning this level of skill and understanding, my availability, because I'm putting aside time for them, my willingness to teach, because good luck to them to find what I offer, and if anyone is going to teach even an iota of that. People who complain that it's too expensive and I only care about money, I say, all right, you find someone who goes for market rate, and you see if they're willing to give you this much time, dedication, and if they're actually going to teach you anything at all. They might just have you do the basic things again and again. And they don't care about you, they'll just take your market rate for decades. Whereas I'm out to get you out within 1 to 3 years, or less. This is a niche, this is a boutique. I learned this, of all places, from the board games I love. 2 publishers I know who make the games Too Many Bones and Cloudspire, or the game Kingdom Death Monster, say right there on their website that this is a boutique practice. This is a boutique product and a premium product. It is not market value because they're dedicated to quality. Either you pay them the value they ask for, or you can find something cheaper, but you're not going to have that experience. And that's the same thing with me. My problem is I just didn't stick to my guns. And the reason I know that I have this value is, again, I validate it in my quality of living, now that I was able to apply it in reality and nature, and apply it outside of the normal battlefield of hand-to-hand combat and into problem solving, whether it's dealing with people or dealing with my own inner demons, and making peace with all of that, and accepting, understanding, and being at peace there. Another thing about the devaluing of the esoteric. There are tons of people who think the esoteric are just opening your third eye, seeing monsters and ghosts, or telekinesis. And of course, that's part of the skill set that you could develop potentially. It's not what I teach, but it's enough for insight, clarity, transformation, and healing. People say they want this, but once they realize there's a price to pay and a process, they don't want to pay the price and they don't like the process, so they write it off as something that means nothing, is bullshit, and people who practice it or sell it are delusional and egomaniacal. Sure, they're free to believe that, but they believed it was real until they were asked to pay for it. The teachings are there freely, but the ability to understand them and use them are what teachers are for. The ability to apply them, the ability to speed up the process, the ability to recognize your development, your signs of development along the way. You can't self-assess, just like you can't Google to find out your symptoms. Sure, people will argue the movie Lorenzo's Oil, but that's an outlier. That is not what happens with medical professionals and people who know what they're talking about. I've even run into people who said that they don't want to go to a psychotherapist because they think that they're going to pay money to people who don't know anything. But the whole point of going to a psychotherapist, especially if someone may or may have some sort of traumatic diagnosis, is that the psychotherapist is paid because they know their stuff. So, when I look at the people who had valued me, they're just reflecting what I felt about myself. And now that I'm at peace with myself, accept who I am and what I do, and that this is what I'm meant to do, I have a lot of zen there. If someone insults me, it's no different than a mosquito buzzing in my ear. Someone recently even told me to touch grass, and that's a bit weird because I did not know that was an insult. It apparently means you're on the internet too much, go touch grass, as in go outside and be in nature, be in reality. And I'm just, well, I've been in nature. I've spent nothing but spend time in nature for the past 6 months. So when they're telling me to get a reality check, I think, okay, so people like this guy can't clean up his room, is failing his classes, forgets to pay his rent, complains about being broke, but somehow flies to another town to meet his friends to get drunk. So I don't know who needs to touch grass here when this city dweller does not have this insider experience. And while I was annoyed with the disrespect that this person attempted, it didn't really bother me because why am I going to listen to someone whose life right now is in need of a massive improvement? A person who does not know and has no experience in the things I have. All they know is what they see on their mobile screen device, and in their very, very young age. They have not met the teachers, they have not traveled the world, they have not experienced the practices and the fruits of those practices. All they know is how to be reactive. So am I going to listen to a random Reddit or YouTube comment from someone who is not altogether in the head and doesn't have their life in order? Or am I going to listen to the people who've taught me these things and the things I've experienced for myself? Am I delusional? I don't know. All I can say is I live with peace and joy and acceptance now compared to months ago when I was emotionally distraught. Why place attention on these individuals? Instead of my past woe is me worldview where I will react to what's thrown at me, spending time in nature shows me just how strong what's thrown at me is the reaction to what's in me. More people approach me now that I finished my journey because I've done everything that I set out to do. And they feel the peace, they recognize the joy, and they know something good emanates from within me. What I've been reading recently validates all of this, and to start, I'll just pull up one thing that I highly recommend, which you can read on the Internet Archive, which is Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Suzuki Shunryu. A great introduction to Zen. There's also this, the Bhagavata Purana, along with the Ramayana, and this here, a great book in Chinese literature, Mad Monk Jigong. So this is quite a difference from Japanese to Chinese to Indian texts, but there's a common theme in all of them, and it validates my experiences and the theories and principles of everything I practice. Let me quote what I read this morning, which just really synchronized with how feeling great has done a lot for me. Just as a caveat though, I have not been feeling the best physically because I did get sick after coming down from Mount Giting, so a couple weeks I couldn't do any exercises, but that didn't make me lose spirit or hope. All I did was continue my meditative practices, my readings, and accept that my body's recovering and it's just a reaction. So instead of being debilitating, it was just phenomena. And then last week I got food poisoning, as opposed to 7 years ago when I was hospitalized overnight in the ER. This time it was an inconvenience, and while the pain level was 8 out of 10, I had support, and instead of freaking out, instead I accepted it, and by the next morning it was down to a pain level of 1 or 2, and the day after things are fine, and in taking herbs I've recovered. So getting back to this part here from chapter 15, the quote that I've summarized in my notes here, the actual quote from the text, The illness of the body is known to itself. The heart has the cure for the sickness of the heart. When the heart is correct, the body will be at peace. When the heart is out of control, the sickness will be out of control. So you might say, okay, so this is mind over matter. If we're talking about the intellect, no, that's being forceful. We're talking about the heart mind, where when you feel good, everything is just fine. Feeling good is not deluding yourself. Feeling good is accepting and deserving. What have I done to deserve feeling good? I've worked on myself. I've done my pilgrimage. I've done my yogas. I've worked on myself even before that with art and music. I see the pattern across everything, and I feel the presence of life and the miracles of life every day now. All the suffering, whether it's people, ex-girlfriends, inconveniences, finances, regrets over past mistakes, and guilt over things I'm not proud of, that is all what inspires change. So, developing that compassion, especially self-compassion, has been useful in having calmness and peace in the heart. One great thing about calmness and peace in the heart is scientifically we can validate this, because when you're happy and you're peaceful, your immune system is doubled. But when you're stressed out and tense, your immune system is halved. Look at the research of Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden, if you don't believe me. Their heart meditation is something that I taught in another video on this channel. So, by feeling good and trusting the process, accepting everything, holding no judgments, everything happened as it was meant to, on a metaphysical level, to get me to the point I'm at. I made the decisions I did because of suffering, so suffering is a gift. Don't tell that to people who are really, really in agony. They may not be able to appreciate that lesson yet. But with the right guidance and practice, they can look at those things as inspiration or fuel if they're willing to be better. But if they're not willing to be better and they want to continue wallowing in their suffering, then unfortunately that's what they need to learn at this point in time in their existence. The process of being comfortable in my own body is very much like the 12 steps of one yoga practice I have, derived from a Ganesha practice, which in turn is also something I see across practices from Kabbalah to Zen to Taoism. Using different terminology, more or less, is the same result in highlighting different phases or hallmarks of development. And it all starts with meditation. Meditation, as I define it, is the natural state, and meditating is the process and methods we use to return to that natural state. If your process is just a phone app telling you to breathe, well, there's nothing wrong with that, but the quality of returning to the natural state might be questionable if you get defensive about what you're doing when questioned about it, criticized, or challenged, because it's not the method ultimately, it's the ongoing process that each individual needs tailored to them, specifically. So, when you question someone using an app and they get defensive, when you question someone who did a weekend Vipassana retreat, this isn't because you're better than them. It's asking, all right, well, how well is that working out for you? And if they get defensive and say, hey, I meditated, did you? Then you might say, well, if you're getting irritated by my question, I'm not going to say anything further because your practice, maybe you should practice more, maybe it's not working out for you, but none of my business. This is all you. You work on yourself. But when people say what I'm doing is just standing and sitting, breathing, and doing things anyone can learn off the internet, which they actually can't, I say, cool beans. You make your own conclusions, but you live your life the way you have been, and I will live the way I've been living my life, which has been its roller coaster, but has been rewarding because everything has been a gift. Even the self-loathing, even the suicidal thoughts and attempts, all the heartbreaks and heartaches, everything just makes this moment sweeter. So let me read to you those 12 steps. Those 12 steps to indicate transformation from meditation. The first thing is you attain calmness. When you have that inner peace and calm, it radiates in your being, not just inside you from feeling good, but on your face. You're relaxed. I'm usually known as being the guy with bitchy resting face. Now, I guess I'm the happy guy, as opposed to the happily deranged guy that some people think look like a serial killer. But that's all them, not me. And it leads to a kind of inner beauty that radiates in your being. Once you've achieved calmness, you develop a one-pointed mind and your focus. That focus allows you to have the metaphorical wish-fulfilling cow, the one that brings both healing and the law of attraction to an extent when manifesting your desires and wishes. And when you have those validations from manifesting, that is when you hear the right messages, whether they're from your ancestors, the spirits, the angels, your gods, or just synchronicity, or just being right there at the moment, perfect moment where you overhear a conversation that just speaks to you even though you're not part of it, seeing a commercial or opening up a book to that right place, or getting a message from someone that validates everything. So you start seeing the signs everywhere. And when you see those signs, you accept you're one with the universe. You are programming your reality. And when you realize that you're one with the universe, you're programming reality as opposed to being programmed by reality, you recognize it's all a dream, all an illusion, all just drama. And when you recognize all is just a dream, all obstacles are equally self-created. So you destroy those obstacles just as easily. When the obstacles are gone, well, you've just started a new golden age in your life. A golden age where everything is full of awe and wonder. And when you have that golden age, you overcome all fears, and you begin to see beyond your original limited perspective, beyond the material plane, beyond the rat race, beyond city living, beyond your community and environment, and beyond your time frame, because you experience the longer now and you have an actual worldview as opposed to what's on your phone screen, what's from your immediate vicinity, what is within your limited time frame for life. Whether you're 20 years old or 70 years old, it's actually a pretty short time. And we have come a pretty long way as a species over the past few centuries. So your concept of time and your perception, time and space, you expand your mind that way. And when you expand your mind, you're able to impact others, bring forth healing through wisdom and understanding. Because all suffering can come from ignorance, not knowing your options, not knowing that there's a better way. That's where you feel stuck. That's why people attempt suicide. They want to escape until they find out their options. That was me in my many attempts over the years. And once you bring about that healing, at the very least to yourself, which will always bring up the people around you, because you are the average of the people around you, and you bring them up as well as they bring you up. You start accepting your higher calling, your higher self, your purpose. And this goes from healing to transformation. And finally, from healing to transformation, your sense of self, your ego, is completely replaced. Almost like taking an elephant's head or a goat's head, as they do in India and Egypt, the Mayan civilizations, where you have the body of a man and the head of an animal to represent the death of the ego identity self and the awakening of higher understanding. It doesn't mean you're actually reptilian. It just means you're no longer tied to these ideas of who you think you should be, or this limited perspective of I, me. When you accept that you're here to live beyond yourself, in addition to your own personal mission, That is what leads to transformation. And some of us need a different process, an alchemical process in life to do that. I needed art, and I needed nature. I needed years of therapy. I needed lots of heartbreak and suffering. And I needed everything that came to me, from narcissistic parents to sexual assault to bullying, everything, and making peace. I made peace with all my high school bullies. I made friends with them. I've forgiven them. Some people I've forgiven, such as my narcissistic parents. That doesn't mean I want to be their friend or be around them. I've made peace with people who call me all sorts of names and assign all sorts of judgments and characterizations, and I accept their view is equally valid because that is their perspective and that is their life. But I'm not in charge of how they feel. I'm responsible for what I do and what I say, not how they feel. And if someone wants to call me crazy or delusional or think that I'm a serial killer, that's on them. But like a mosquito buzzing in my ear or an itch on my ass, it's insignificant ultimately. So, this is where I am now in my life from the journey. From the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you who've been following me during this time since December and November. Where I go now, who knows? But I will be giving lectures. I have several books in the works, one on meditations for healing, clarity, and transformation, one a collection of my short fiction, and one a summary of my pilgrimage. I have students and clients and consultations lined up. I have corporate work lined up. But most of all, I have good friends. I feel love everywhere around me, wherever I go. I enjoy myself. I enjoy my own company, especially my dogs, and the otherworldly beings who are always with me and have always been there. I enjoy my books. I enjoy what I have achieved and all the more that I can achieve. I enjoy my nerdy things without assigning judgment and calling them nerdy, whether it's board games or video games or reading comics and watching anime. I enjoy the fact that I can cook and that people appreciate and look forward to my cooking. A far cry from someone who didn't know how to play guitar, someone who couldn't cook, someone who couldn't draw, someone who thought he was chubby, all sorts of things. I'm at peace with myself and I have value, and all the things I'd cry about, whether it was money or girlfriends or people, all phenomena. I'm okay with myself when I'm alone, and I'm happy to share myself with those who wish to share time and presence with me. So again, I have nothing but gratitude for all of you and everything that I've done, all of you who've donated, and even those of you who may not be happy with me. I'm happy for what you give because this is still what I need as a reminder that I still have a lot of self-work to do. But I have made huge progress in 6 months because of all of you. Good and bad doesn't exist. It's always learning, wisdom, and improvement into transformation. Thank you again.